Right now, joining us, Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma. He's a member of the Intelligence and Homeland Security Committees. Senator, thanks very much for joining us. I want to get to the thwarted attack in Paris shortly, but first, you've been briefed on the situation, very tense situation in North Korea. Remember, 1 million North Korean troops along the DMZ, almost 1 million South Korean troops along the DMZ, nearly 30,000 U.S. soldiers in between. It's a very tense situation right now. First of all, what kind of nuclear test was this?
Yeah, we don't know fully yet what kind of nuclear test this was. Obviously, North Korea says it's a hydrogen bomb. The reason they would brag about that and say it's what it is, it'd be a more powerful weapon. It would be a smaller weapon that they could carry on their existing ballistic missiles a longer distance. We know they've done multiple missile tests of late. This is their third test of a nuclear device just in the past 6 years. So they have ramped up their number of tests that they have done. So it's very important that we actually know what type of weapon it is, so we know what kind of capability and what type of missile that would be. That's why this becomes so provocative.
As you know, the House of Representatives is expected to vote on new sanctions as early as next week. But North Korea has already sanctioned brutally, if you will, tough sanctions. You think even more sanctions are going to make much of a difference?
I think you have to find the leverage point on it. As has been mentioned multiple times, China does 2/3 of the trade with North Korea. It's incredibly important that we work with China to be able to shut down the access to some of the trade and some of the things that are coming in. North Koreans are incredibly poor at this point. Their average total amount of income is about $1,200 a year for a North Korean. So it's an incredibly poor country. And the reason they've had such great poverty is because their leadership continues to make poor decisions, not only in their economy, but with their military activity, and continue to isolate them from the rest of the world. It's incredibly damaging to the Korean people, and they've suffered a tremendous amount. The challenge is we can't allow a rogue nation to continue to develop nuclear weapons and be this provocative right on the border of South Korea and so many nations that are allies of ours in Asia. So you have to continue to use the leverage of sanctions, work with China in coordination with them, and to be able to shut off many things that are actually coming through North Korea right now.
And as tensions escalate in Asia, they're dramatically escalating in the Middle East right now, especially between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Senator, stand by. We have more to assess. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Fresh fears of terror tonight in Paris, where police shot and killed a man who tried to storm their station wearing a fake suicide vest carrying an image of the ISIS flag. The thwarted attack came 1 year to the day of the deadly attack of the Charlie Hebdo magazine. We're back with the Republican Senator James Lankford of Oklahoma, a member of the Intelligence and Homeland Security Committees. You've been well briefed on these terror threats in Europe as well as here in the United States. Should we be bracing for more ISIS-inspired attacks?
We should, actually, and that's one of the things that's the most challenging in this current environment is ISIS is trying to both inspire attacks through social media, telling people, come join the caliphate, come fight in Syria and Iraq. If you can't come join us here, kill people where you are and just tell them you're with us. So what has happened in Paris today is exactly the type of thing that ISIS is trying to inspire around the world, to say you don't have to be ever connected with us, be around us. Take the ISIS logo, go kill someone, tell them you're with us, because their goal is to create this kind of terror and this kind of instability in every part of the Western world.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the fears here in the United States are significant. Let's talk about the escalating tension in the Middle East right now. As bad as it is, seems to be getting worse by the day. And now there are these claims by the Iranians that the Saudis hit the Iranian embassy in Yemen today. The Saudis are denying it. What can you tell us about that?
There's really a proxy war going on both in Syria and in Yemen right now, but especially in Yemen, right on the southern border of Saudi Arabia, where Iran has supported the overthrow of the government there. For a short period of time, the leader of that country was kicked out. Now he's back in country. The Saudis and the UAE, they're trying to support the return of that leader, but this becomes a Sunni-Shia fight between Iran and Saudi Arabia in Yemen, very similar to what's happening in Syria as a whole, as Iran is propping up Syria, and the Saudis and multiple other Sunni nations are trying to actually be able to push back in that. It has been a giant mess and continues to get worse. We see it in North Africa as well, with ISIS attacking some of the oil facilities, trying to destabilize the very young government trying to be formed in Libya as well, in a ceasefire that's occurring there. There are a lot of issues that are happening there, but I tell your viewers, it's extremely important to watch the relationship between Saudi Arabia and Iran. They have not gotten along well at all. They do have very different perspectives of the future of the Middle East, and both of them want to be the key player in the Middle East. The hard part for us is Russia is the one stepping in now due to their position in the Middle East, trying to broker that relationship. And it's important that the United States stays in the lead to be able to help in that area.
Senator, I want to switch gears and talk about guns for a moment while I have you. You're on the subcommittee that funds the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. What's your take on the president's recent proposals to try to do something about the 30,000 Americans who die because of gun violence in the United States every year?
Yeah, Republicans and Democrats alike, you don't have to be any party at all. We're incredibly grieved about gun violence in the United States. The challenge is the things that the president has proposed at this point. Even Josh Earnest, his spokesman, has come forward and said it doesn't stop mass shootings. We have to deal with family issues. We have to deal with the influence of drugs in our society, which is one of the major drivers of gun violence of every type. We focus a lot on the mass shootings that happen, but really the drug gangs and the drug violence that's happening in many of our cities drives a lot of the gun violence. So that's incredibly important for us to refocus as a nation on drug use and on the key family issues. There are key issues that we need to deal with. For instance, the National Instant Criminal Background Check. Some of the states are not submitting their information fully. The federal government has made it so difficult to submit that information that they just don't do it. That needs to be fixed. It doesn't matter if you're going to do a background check if the states haven't submitted a full record of all those that have committed a felony in their state into that background check. So it is important some of those things get resolved. But I would tell you, Wolf, this seems to be an issue that just is a presidential politics type year issue to kind of distract from other things. There are ways to be able to work to solve this. But really what's happening right now is every time the president talks about more gun control issues, more Americans go buy guns. 24 million guns sold last year. 11 million were sold the year before the president took office. He's been a tremendous salesman for firearms in the United States because every time he talks about another executive action, there's an additional increase in gun sales. Constitution's pretty clear on this issue. You cannot remove this basic Second Amendment right, but we should be able to do criminal background checks, as it was already in the law, with full, complete records.
Senator Lankford, thanks very much for joining us.
You bet. Glad to be able to do it.
And we're only about an hour and a half away from the CNN town hall tonight with President Obama. He's going to be addressing the issue of guns. That airs 8 p.m. Eastern. He's going to be with Anderson Cooper in a live town hall, 8 p.m. Eastern later tonight.